Okay, hello everyone. So today I am doing something similar to the last video. I'm going into my pile of clothes that need to be fixed or changed or altered, and I am going to pick something out and update it and fix it. What I'm going to use is this jumper that I got a couple of years ago from Forever 21, and it's just falling apart, to be honest. The fabric is just getting really thin and worn down. I can just feel it wearing away. I know, being a Forever 21 jumper, it's fast fashion, it's really cheaply made, it's not very good quality, which is why it's falling apart. But it's disappointing because I love the Rugrats kind of, you know, like little print on the front, and I'd love to keep that if possible. So what I'm going to do is we're going to try to upcycle this. So the idea of upcycling is, instead of just recycling this and finding a new purpose for it, or, you know, like cutting it up and using the fabric for cleaning, something like that, which is a great thing to do, better than just throwing this out. But upcycling it is kind of giving it a new life, turning it into something better than it currently is, or at least the same standard that it was at. So what I'm going to do is kind of make a jumper to sit underneath it, and then I'm going to kind of, I suppose, like tear away at it bits to make it look kind of grungy and interesting. I'm not sure if it's going to work out. I've never done anything like this, but I got an idea in my head of what I want, and I'm hoping it's going to work. So yeah, I'll show you how I go through that process. It should be pretty easy, and hopefully you learn some ways to maybe, you know, take an old jumper or something and turn it into something new. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so this is kind of what it's looking like right now. It's really thin. You can already see my top underneath it, which I don't really like, especially because I do often wear black and darker colors, so I don't like being able to see that kind of poking through. It's just really worn down and thin, and it's losing a bit of its shape in places. You know, it's just getting kind of like baggy but not in the right areas. So yeah, I want to make this just look a little bit more updated, a little bit fresher and new. So yeah. Okay, so please excuse the messy look of the paper. I'm just using a scrap piece of pattern paper for this. You can use any kind of like butcher's paper, anything that's lightweight enough that you can kind of see through it a bit is probably best. So all we're going to do is trace out the shape of the jumper. So to do that, we just need to lay it down flat. Now with a worn jumper like this, that can be a little bit harder because it has kind of reshaped and stretched in places. So we want to just do our best to make sure all the seams are kind of laying flat, all the side seams, the hem and everything are just matching up neatly. And then what we're going to do is fold it in half right down the center. So we're just focusing on tracing out the body at this stage, and then we'll go ahead and trace out the sleeve. And I'm going to attach it onto this rib. I'm going to leave this rib here. So all we're going to do is trace around this using a ruler where you can. So like this is obviously going to be a straight line. Even if it's stretched out a little bit, I know it's meant to be straight. So I'll just kind of mark in with my pencil. Fold it back a little bit so I can see better. And then we'll go ahead and do the side seam, just making sure we mark in where the sleeve kind of attaches. And then this one I'll just kind of create a big dashed line down the side so that I can straighten it up and tie it up when I need to. And then that's just going to be a straight line across the bottom there. And you can see it kind of curves in just very slightly. And if we straighten out the fabric, not pulling it tight, just pulling it so where it would sit naturally, we can see that that's more of a straight line, and that's just because the rib draws it in a little bit. Basically all jumpers will do that, so just keep that in mind. Now we'll do the neckline and the sleeve. So the easiest way to do this is either get a pin and poke through to the paper, leaving just little holes where everything is, so it kind of just leaves a little indent. Or you can put the paper on top and trace over it, but obviously this kind of can be hard if your paper's a little thicker. It also can be really lumpy and the drawing not so good because you're, you know, drawing over fabric. So if we do that, it will leave little marks. You might not be able to see this on the camera very well, but I can see these dots, so draw that. And kind of, it's not going to be perfectly accurate because it is, you know, roughly traced out, but as long as it follows the general shape, it should be okay. We're working with stretch fabric here too, so it's really kind of easy to mold into your own shape. And then the front neck is different, so I'll fold this out the other way and trace out the front neck. Just get rid of that and trace out side seam and the hem, just like so. As you can see, the front neck sits a little bit lower down, and I'm doing this where the rib attaches, not up where the rib finishes, so where it attaches. Just like that. Okay, so this will be on the fold, and then the rest we'll just need to add 1 centimeter seam to all of it. And the reason I'm keeping the front and the back neck on the same piece is that I'm only going to use this pattern once, to be honest. I'm only using it for this project, so I don't really care if I cut off the back neck piece when I'm cutting out the front neck piece, because I'm not going to use it again. But if you wanted to use this as a pattern for your own jumper, just kind of use it again and again, I would suggest tracing this out twice with a front piece and a back piece. Also, the grain line will go parallel to the fold, so just if you care about that kind of information, that's where it goes. Just going to lay out the sleeve. So the sleeve kind of naturally wants to sit, I guess, folded in half, which is good, makes it a lot easier to manage. So we want it just sitting nice and flat, the side seam sitting even there. And so I'll just lightly trace down here and just mark where the cuff is. And this, see how again this kind of comes in? It would actually sit just a little bit further out, so I need to make note of that. And then I'll mark down this side as well. And then the cuff will be a straight line, so I don't need to pin through to that and mark it in or anything. The neckline and the kind of like arm seam, whatever you want to call it, does need to be marked in. So I'm just going to poke through, just making sure I'm poking through the paper. That's kind of like the whole point of this, so I'll just run my hand under and make sure I feel the pin going all the way through. And then I'll just mark all of that in. And so this will be on the fold as well, and again that means that the grain is sitting this way. So I'm just going to add 1 centimeter to all the sides except for the fold, and then cut it out. So I just got this kind of basic jersey fabric. You know, it's exactly what hoodies and trackies and everything are made out of. Got it from Spotlight. I think it was about $18 a meter. I got 1.5 meters, and I'm thinking that should be enough for this jumper. Kind of measure your own jumper against the fabric and double check, because you know, things can be a little bit different. So I'm just going to fold it in half. It's already folded in half once, because that's how it's put on the roll, but then I'm just going to fold it again. So that way we'll be cutting out 2 pieces at once. Okay, so I've just done the same thing and folded it over. I haven't folded it completely in half again, just because this piece isn't as wide and I want to be able to leave this fabric, because if there is enough left over to do something else with it, I'd rather do something else with it than just leave it go to waste. So I'm just going to place this down. So then we have 2 sleeves cut out, and then so we have 2 essentially back pieces at the moment. So I'm going to put one of them to the side, and then the other one I'm just going to fold back over, line this back up, and then pin along the front neckline and cut out the front neckline. So there we go, that's the front, that's the back. If you get confused, just keep in mind back's got the smaller neckline. Okay, so what I'm going to do is place the front and back just like this, and then with right sides together I'm going to pin down the kind of like arm sleeve. So I'll do it on this side, and then I'll bring this side over and pin it over as well. Now the reason I'm doing the arm first before the side seam is I looked at the original jumper and it was sewn so that the arm was sewn first and then the side seam was sewn all at once, so the kind of like sleeve through the body. Really, you could do it either way. I'm just doing it the same way that the original jumper has it, because I feel like it will kind of work out to have the same shape a little bit and kind of sit a lot closer to what the original was. So have a look at your own jumper and double check how it was put together to work out how to put yours together, just in case it's different. And keep in mind, like these, they're curves, so you're going to have to kind of pull them up to make sure all the sides match perfectly. Just like that. And then folding that over so the right side's up, I'll bring the back over it like so. Okay, sorry, the camera cut out. I'm not certain where it cut out, but basically all I'm doing is stitching these arm seams on both sides, and all I'm going to do that is overlock it. If you don't have an overlock, you can use a zigzag stitch, or you can use a plain stitch. The only problem is plain stitch won't stretch with a stretch fabric, so you are more likely to get a seam to break. The thread might snap and stuff like that, so I would advise using an overlocker or a zigzag stitch if you can. Also, an overlocker itself will protect any fraying or anything with this fabric. This fabric's not too prone to fraying, but it just kind of adds that extra kind of protection, I suppose. So I'm going to do that to both of these seams. These have been stitched. Now all I'm going to do with right sides together is attach the side seams. I'm going to do this all at once, so coming through the body and then down the arm. So just going to overlock that. Okay, so that is all stitched up. Now what I'm going to do is turn it right side round. Okay, so that's all done and looking like a jumper now. All I'm going to do is overlock the raw edges. This is just going to prevent it from any kind of like fraying, tearing and all that. The reason I'm doing that is that I'm going to attach it along the cuffs and the like ribs at the bottom and everything. That's how I'm going to attach it to this. But this doesn't have an edge to attach it onto because the cuffs and everything have been cover stitched down. So that means they've been applied kind of flat. So they're sitting flat against it. So what I'm going to have to do is overlock this, and then when attaching it onto this, just attach it through it, kind of like with a straight stitch, or with maybe a zigzag stitch so that it can still stretch easily. So yeah, what I'm going to do is overlock this first. Okay, so all the edges have been overlocked. Now I'm going to place it inside of the Rugrats jumper. Okay, so I'm just going to go around and make sure all of the side seams are matching up, and that's kind of like the most important aspect, I suppose. So all I'm doing is placing the side seams over the top of each other, and then I'm going to pin all along where this cuff attaches to the main body. I'm attaching the grey. And I'm going to do this on the inside just so that when I'm stitching it I can make sure I'm catching the grey fabric. And then the same around the hem, same on the other sleeve, same on the neck. Okay, so I'm going to stitch that all together. Okay, so that has all been stitched on just with a zigzag stitch, and it's over the top of the cover stitch so you can't really see it at all. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch around the parts of the jumper I want to keep. So that's going to be mainly this, but then I'm also going to kind of do it maybe like a little bit randomly. There might be a little bit of like, I don't know, reasoning to it, but I definitely want to keep all of the cuffs and the neckline, everything like that. So I'll stitch kind of out around this, you know, maybe like up the side seam a bit, and then what I'm going to do in the areas I don't want to keep, you know, like maybe I'll stitch kind of like up part of the sleeve but leave this bit blank. I'm going to cut into it and kind of like tear it and fray it a bit and just make it look kind of really worn out, even more so than it already is. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pin in around kind of like where I want to stitch, so that when I go and take it to the machine I'm not just stitching everywhere. I kind of have an idea, and then I'll show you how I'm going to distress it and make it look a little bit more interesting. Okay, so I've just stitched all around, just using a zigzag stitch so that it can still stretch and everything, and I've just put it on a mannequin so that you can see how I'm doing the kind of like cutting out and distressing. So all I'm going to use is scissors, and I'm going to begin cutting into the areas that I've left free that I want to kind of distress and make look a little bit interesting. Some I might leave reasonably flat, and just over time, because this fabric is already breaking down, they'll distress anyway. And I'm doing this on a mannequin just so I can kind of see how it looks on the body while I'm doing it, and also so that I'm making sure I'm not cutting through more than one layer. I'm just cutting through this top pink layer. Okay, so as you can see, I've just kind of added all of these cutouts and tears to it, and as it wears it will become even more frayed, more torn, kind of this will begin rolling up and everything. Once it goes through the wash, again, it's all just kind of eventually going to deteriorate. But these bits that I've stitched on should stay a lot better. So kind of like the collar, like the neckline and everything, because I've stitched all around it, it should be okay there. So yeah, that is that. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. I kind of wanted it to look like, you know, this new jump is peeking through an old torn up one. So yeah, I'm really happy with how it's turned out. I also like it because as it continues to be washed and worn, it's going to kind of like tear away and age a little bit more around all these holes and stuff that I've added in, and it should begin to like really fray and bunch up and be interesting, and I can always cut away more if I feel like it. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I think it's kind of a unique and fun idea to take an old jumper and make it something a little bit more interesting and exciting. And yeah, hope you liked the video. Okay, so I'm really happy with how this has turned out. I'm really think it's a great way to just update something that's old and falling apart, but you still love, or you still have like a sentimental attachment to something like that. Or for me, it was the Rugrats kind of graphic. I really love the Rugrats and don't usually see that on at least adult clothing, so I wanted to be able to keep that and still be able to wear it and put it in my wardrobe. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I hope it kind of taught you a little bit of something about upcycling your clothes, about how to take an old jumper and make a new one, anything like that. Hope you got some tips. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And yeah, bye.